Get some small stalls, so when you're building
Wait,
out,
what's a small stall versus a big stall?
So you've been in the like web hosting world, so it's all DNS conflicts between different software systems, and that's not usually my wheelhouse. I'm glad I took a few programming classes when I was young, but it takes me a while to catch up and get all that stuff fixed.
Did you just dump it all in one of your AIs and?
That's what I did. It just took a while.
Okay.
Well, and part of it is if you with the DNS records, so you get like emails to talk to other systems other than your web host or your domain name, or if you get your domain name verified by a different web host, and they want to talk to each other. That whole thing takes like 72 hours just to figure out if you did it right. And so if you want to try 2 or 3 things,
propagate. What's the word? Propagate.
Yeah, you probably know more about this than I do. I've learned like 90% of what I know in like the last 2 weeks. But so anyways, I did a few. Yeah, exactly. I know too much. I did a few things and it took a good week and a half, just like lost a week and a half. That being said, I think I fixed it this morning. Won't know for 2 or 3 days. If I did, we'll be good to go. I don't want to launch anything without, coordinating it with, a few people like yourself.
Right. Of course, experts like myself.
Right. I mean, I could just put it out there, but I'd rather coordinate it well.
Here, one bit of advice that I would give for everybody out there that they probably already know that I just figured out recently: context block. When you are done with your day, sum up everything, put it somewhere, so when you start the next day, you know where it.
Yep.
And it won't forget the stuff. And I just learned that recently, Joshua, and I should have learned that a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird how we get wiser as we get older. It's bizarre.
How can I get smarter with neurofeedback?
Well, it depends on what you need. There are some classic things called the brain brightener protocol, but they generally work the best for people who need them. I'm always kind of biased towards the phenotype model, that if you have a genetic correlated imbalance, something that seems to run in families.
So if I come in, you give me the EEG, you look at the raw data, what are you seeing in my head, Joshua?
What do I suspect I'll see?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, most people who run in this field, they tend to run a little fast. Which is fine, and sometimes they have, their own stories. If you work in mental health, chances are you didn't have a great childhood. So not to call everybody out, but, that's kind of the rule of thumb is you had a reason for why you pursued this domain instead of something else. And
why is it?
Why is that? I think you give purpose and meaning to experience. And we're driven to do that. It's just like we want a good story. We want everything to have value. And even the past, we want even the past to be valued. And so if the past informs something positive in the present, it's kind of properly counterbalanced. And so we kind of obsessively look for things that are informed by our story to counterbalance it. And that's not inappropriate. It's a really interesting way to handle our story. The downsides are that it doesn't pay well.
One of the links that I sent, Joshua, talks about how the brain protects itself with something called mind blanking, where you just, when you're looking at your phone and you forget whatever it is you're doing, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And I'm trying to figure that out the next time where I'm staring at my phone. I'm like, what the hell was I supposed to be doing? That's a healthy thing?
Well, it depends on the balance too. I mean, if you are underperforming, in school, and you're feeling like you're mind blanking, somebody else is going to call it ADHD. So I guess it does depend. But what we're seeing in this article, I'm kind of scanning through it real quick. Is that there's a normal amount of mind blanking. I was reading an article about how highway hypnosis, I think a lot of people know about highway hypnosis, but we've all had the experience of you're driving along and then all of a sudden you realize that you don't remember part or part of the trip, that you're like, I don't remember crossing the bridge, but I clearly crossed the bridge. that little white line that kind of zooms past you can actually hypnotize you, and it can slow your response time by a third to a half a second. And so you kind of give people more leeway, and it's not generally a huge problem, but it is one of the larger problems in, traffic incidences. Slowing your response time to reorient, and come back to the room, come back to the car.
Yeah. Well, how about the video editor, Joshua? Is it the back of your brain? Is it your autopilot kicking in, or what's going on there?
Yeah. So it's a little more complicated than back of the brain, but it's not an unfair summary. There's this default mode network that is easiest to see from the back of the brain. It's made up primarily of alpha. It's informed by maybe 1/3 of the cells in your brain. It's heavily attenuated by the responsibility of alpha by vision, which pushes us from default mode to executive network and salience network. And we have to have a certain amount of balance too. So that mind blanking might be that rubber band snapping back and kind of demanding some idle states. And I think that's somewhat normal. Especially if we're in a busy culture, which we are. I'm sure Anthony has some thoughts on that.
Hi, Anthony.
Hey, dudes.
Radar was looking for you.
I saw that.
Yep, we got him by demand.
Nice.
You got him.
Nice to be remembered. People notice when you're not here too, by the way, Radar. So that's great.
True.
Sounds like you guys are talking about that mind blanking finding that came out or whatever. And
what is that?
I think it involves. They said it resets the brain so that you can, I guess, Josh, were you saying that it's activating the DMN?
That's what I suspected, but I don't, I'm looking through this and it's synchronized patterns similarly seen in sleep. It's like, I think it's the default. It sounds like the default mode network, but they're not saying it outright. But it sounds like the default mode network.
Yeah, I think there was something, it might have been a different study of the last few weeks that said after mind blanking, you're better able to recognize patterns. Yeah. And I think the DMN can be involved in that. But I think there probably is. I would need to go look at it. But my guess is if you're mind blanking all the time, that's probably something bad, even if it's therapeutic. Kind of like napping. Like there's studies saying if you nap, you're healthier. But there's also studies saying if you need to nap all the time, that's a sign of dementia. Yeah. So it's one of the first signs, actually. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, but that's an interesting study. Yeah.
You all right there, Pete?
Uh-oh. That's funny. It's okay. He'll forget in a minute.
In my room.
Yeah. Right. But that's cool. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah. There were a couple interesting studies.
Yeah, there's a study in the corner of my head. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it is about how the memory synchronization is related to the default mode network. And we all kind of know that alpha plays a large memory role. So it seems unlikely that the study's not referencing that.
It's ironic you can't remember it.
I know.
Oh, funny.
The problem is we do this podcast at the end of my day.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too is,
I was just going to say, we need Radar to step up and pull out one of his famous questions.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says the brain becomes hypercoherent during mind blanks, which it also does during sleep onset. So it's like the brain's falling asleep. They literally use the phrase "cooling your head." So I wonder if maybe because your brain does cool as you fall asleep. Speaking of this heat issue. Pete, you know about the neurodivergent topic or debate, I'm going to guess, right?
Yep.
You know something. And how would you describe, if you're willing, how would you describe neurodivergent or that whole idea, if you had some idea about it?
If I had some idea about it, divergent, having different mediums to choose from, is that what you're talking about, Anthony? Or where were you going?
Yeah. It's this idea that I'm trying to, just keep people engaged or something. And the idea is just that there's different types of brains out there, and things like autism and ADHD, they're not disorders. This is the theory. They're not disorders. They're just different ways of being that are equally as valid. And there was a study that came out this week that's related to heat and autism. And what it found out, the reason I'm asking or bringing this up, they said that fevers will spontaneously resolve the symptoms of autism. So they said parents describe that when their kid has a fever, that their symptoms of autism, like social deficits and repetitive behaviors, will go away.
Makes you wonder
and they'll
if the
come back when
involved.
the fever's over. What's up, Josh?
That makes you wonder if the thyroid's involved. That's interesting.
Oh, well, maybe. And so I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. But one of the things the researcher said was that, and this is what I wanted to talk about today, is just the idea that these autistic brains are just structurally different. And that's why they behave differently. This study kind of calls that into question.
Yeah, I have some strong opinions on this topic, and they're not popular.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, there's going to be. I just want to say before we get into it.
This one. I get in trouble.
No, I'm sure we can get in trouble. I just want to say,
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to say everybody deserves to be treated with dignity.
Yes,
but we can still maybe address symptoms. But Josh, I'll go ahead and let you go.
So I think the idea is that there's this kind of benevolent, almost caretaking, nurturing, maternal thing that therapists do, where they want to, destigmatize things, and that can go to a fault, and I think that this discussion about, neurodivergence is not a disorder is where we've actually taken it too much of a fault. I've actually attended lectures where people showed videos of nonverbal autistics who needed machines to communicate and were on full disability. And then they went on to talk for more than an hour about how it's not a disability. And it's like, I mean, don't believe your eyes, don't believe your ears, like, come on, man. Like we're not like, 70% of all autistics have subclinical epileptic discharges. There's studies on this, lots of studies on this. They have very unstable brains. When you look at like nonverbal, low functioning autistics, half of them are diagnosed with epilepsy in one study. Okay. This is a disorder that can kill you. Okay. We're not talking about, something that is easy on your nervous system. This is very, very hard on your nervous system. And we're going to not call it a disorder because we want them to feel more comfortable. Okay. Let's do that and play that out. Do you think the bipolar people are going to not come around? Do you think the learning disabled people are not going to come around? Do you think that what if we just called nothing a disorder? Let's just destigmatize everything. People with anxiety disorders just have a different brain type. Nobody's disordered. We're playing with semantics here, and it's just
schizophrenia.
It's a useless maternal game that we shouldn't play. We need to just have adult conversations and say, these people want to feel accepted. They need to feel accepted. But it is a disorder. And it's hard to talk about it that way, but it is.
Yeah, it is difficult, but I know that it's coming from frustration because I had a mother. I just put up. I've said this on the podcast, but I put up a study about autism and neurofeedback treating autism. That's all it said was neurofeedback can treat your autism. And a mother messaged me to say, and this is a quote. She said, "You are not allowed to tell me that autism can be treated." Because and again, it's coming from pain. I know it's coming from pain, but she said, at least in part, she said, I'm diagnosed autistic and my family's all diagnosed autistic and nothing helps. And so this is just the way we are and you need to accept it. And it's like,
that's the other side of the coin. That's the more toxic. I didn't go into that side of the toxic coin.
She went far with it. Yes. Yeah. She went she went hostile. Go on. So
for the listeners, I think you have to explain and debrief that other piece of it. With this, we want to destigmatize it. People will take it even further yet. I didn't even address that part, but the further yet that makes it even more toxic than the version that I described is when they go, it's not a disorder. Now it's everybody else's problem. Okay. And it's like, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't want society to be more accepting and more accommodating. But here is the problem. It's hard to articulate this carefully.
It is.
Whenever you say this person shouldn't have to be responsible and this person and everybody else should take responsibility, we're actually, there's nothing different. This is going to sound weird. There's no difference between expecting less of somebody and thinking less of somebody. And so these therapists, they think quite little of their autistic clients. They have a very low opinion of them. I have a very, very high opinion of my clients. I expect very, very large amount of responsibility be put on their shoulders and for them to rise up and become more than they were. And they're not doing that with their clients. They're not doing that. And so, for example, I don't want to get too personal, but let's just say my development was not normal.
Okay.
I pass fairly well. I'll leave it vague, but I was in 10 years of occupational therapy. I had a laundry list of diagnoses, the length of my arm. And the part of the reason why I pass very well is because I took sign language classes. They teach you how to use your face. They teach you how to use your hands. And that's extremely useful to me. That's what I advise my clients to do. Go take sign language classes. They'll coach you on all the micro expressions, both hands and face. Phenomenally useful. But that being said, part of the reason why I get to have a company, I get to have employees, I get to have a wife, I get to have kids, are because I took more responsibility than society would have asked me to. What do you want out of life? I want everything.
Yeah.
What do you want for your clients?
Yeah. Do you want them to just cope better, or do you want them to have, overcome certain challenges? And I think it is partly coming. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I so the other side of the coin people will say is, it reminds me of the whole discussion, Van Gogh was bipolar. Should we have treated Van Gogh? I kind of come down on the side of, if treatment was available for Van Gogh, he might still be alive, or not now, but he would have lived twice as long. So I do kind of come down on or you've even heard Lincoln. Lincoln was probably bipolar and maybe alcoholic. Hemingway.
Yeah.
But this is what I'll say is, some of this I think really is motivated by, there was a woman at Jay's conference. She wasn't at Jay's conference. Jessica Yore at last year's Sassoon, she did a talk on treating autism phenotypes with neurofeedback. And she put up, there were a couple speakers that she played. She said, I've been asked to play this by the Autism Association. And it was a woman, and she was running her hand through a faucet. And she had this language come up, this text that said, this is the way I communicate. This may not be communication to you, but this is communication to me. And I asked you to respect that. And then they showed a woman who, she's nonverbal as well. And it might have been the same woman, but it may not have. And she clearly had a lot of tics, and it felt to me like that would be a difficult way to live. And something about the outside of her window is how she communicates, in her words. And my thing is, yes, there's some sense there may be special giftings to some disorders, Maybe autistic people, bipolar, maybe they see patterns better, or they do art better, whatever it may be. But I just have to think, what'd you say, Josh?
It's part of the imbalance.
Okay, there you go. I just have to think, though, that some of this is coming from the fact that there's really not much available for them. An MD friend of mine said, there is no treatment for autism. Medicine does not have, the only treatment is occupational therapy, which does not really treat the disorder. So I have to think that if they really were convinced that autism could be treated with, say, neurofeedback, if they could get treatment, I have to think that many of these people, maybe not all, but they would voluntarily choose, maybe I don't need to communicate through the water faucet anymore. Maybe if I could talk, maybe if I actually believed I could talk, I would start just embrace neurofeedback or whatever it is. So anyway, but yes, I know it's hard to go through that conditions. So at least it looks like to me. So I don't want to be too dismissive. Well, but go on, Josh.
And the proposition that this isn't your responsibility, this is society's responsibility, is a toxic, parasitic idea that will hurt people. It will limit them from their potential growth. I think that's one of the most horrible things that people could propagate.
Take it to the extreme.
Well, you talked about having a personal interaction where that parasitic idea had taken hold. And you can't go to a conference on autism without hearing exactly this narrative. It's in every single one. You'll also hear a lecture or two in the conferences about, autism is just the next stage of human evolution. It's like, well, the next stage of human evolution doesn't usually incorporate epilepsy.
And I mean, to be honest, what'd you say, Pete?
I was just saying, that's defeatism, isn't it? And that's something you got to train.
Well, the other thing I'd point, I don't want to be too rough, because here's the thing. So I agree with for the most part what you're saying, and I just have to think about how far I want to take it. But Josh, we have a little bit of a privileged perspective as neurofeedback clinicians or enthusiasts or whatever, in that we've actually seen transformations of people from tremendous, from autistic to nonverbal to verbal. So we've seen that.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, that is not common in other modalities. That is not common in a doctor's office. That is not common in an OT office, to my knowledge. And I know many OTs. So we have the privileged position of actually having seen it improve. And many of these people, I'm sure, have not, just like that mom who said she's tried a lot of things. I can imagine it would be hard you want to believe at some point she probably wanted to believe that she could fix herself or her children's autism. And then it didn't happen. And I can imagine that hurt can make you, and I'm not going to say that's the only thing, but it can make you resentful or bitter. So I want to be sensitive to that, but I have just seen, and I haven't seen it with every neurofeedback. I've seen Jay's neurofeedback approaches create tremendous change in people. Again, verbal to nonverbal, practically. Yeah. But I know saying that's hard to believe. I could imagine that would be hard to believe. So what I would say is before you're just certain that autism cannot be treated, look into neurofeedback, maybe just hold out a little bit of hope. Yeah.
The case study that I put in my book, the tiny little cheap book that you can get for $3 on Kindle, the very last case study, there's like a 5th or 6th case study, is a frontal beta spindle case with severe autism that went from nonverbal to verbal. And all we did was reduce half the beta spindles.
Oh my gosh.
So like we're still in progress. And it's like the difference between half the beta spindles coming down was the difference between verbal and nonverbal. They reduced the amount of academic help that they had because they started to improve so much. So I mean, it's real.
We could be so close.
Hey, you want good news? Check out Joshua's relative. Hey, everyone, I got good news. My friend is the 8th Neuralink patient. Good thing Jay's not here. And he's already making music and software with the brain-computer interface. So he has ALS the same day after the first woman to get one, too. Boom.
Yes.
Well, good for them. That's incredible to know someone getting a brain-computer interface. That's pretty great.
I wonder if you can upgrade the memory, put an SSD in there.
That was his original conception, Pete. His original mission statement was to improve dementia by adding memory, essentially. That's the way he described it, at least. Radar's got a statement here. Many people are against treating autistic children, are people who've never even tried. They're completely different. Yeah, I don't want to say that. Some of them, I'm sure,
could be.
I'll take this woman at her word that she's tried things. Again, I know people who in occupational therapy and MDs, they would never say that you could treat autism. So this seems to be status quo, is that this is a very hard disorder to make headway on, except it seems like in the neurofeedback world. And I sympathize. Let's take the autism out of it. It was a little hard for me to buy neurofeedback at first. I'll be honest with you. It took me a little push.
How long ago?
That's like 4 years, 3 years now. It's not that long for me. So
yeah, you cruised fast though,
Well, thank you, and you do too, man. So you're with it. I know, cutting edge there.
I feel like I got better over the last, maybe 8 or 9 years. My first 5 years were mostly just like getting confidence and trying to convince myself that I wasn't gonna wake up one morning and see some sort of gigantic, concise proof study that said that it was all fake. And I was just like nervous. But I kept getting good results and kept getting good results. And I hardly knew what I was doing back then. I didn't have that many tools. So I don't know. I no longer have my doubts. So
that's good.
New study links psychedelic use to mental health recovery in times of crisis. I know we poo-poo weed and THC, but I've heard a lot of people get off the SSIDs. What do you call those things?
SSRI.
Yeah, and they've gotten off of those by getting on the gummies. Is that true, or you're trading one thing for another?
There's a lot of things to talk about there. That's complicated.
Ooh.
We got 34 minutes. Go.
Yeah. Okay. So there's pieces we could break this down into. There's the people with PTSD that are on SSRIs because of what it does for their frontal issues. And with those individuals, THC use is really working as an emotional anesthetic. And that does not scale well across time. And you really are, you're locked into eventually high doses, and you won't even get to the point where withdrawal causes you problems. You'll get to the point where there's this emotional rebound if you don't use it within 6 or 12 hours. And there's no way that's withdrawal, because your withdrawal starts at like 6 weeks. Like, that's not withdrawal. So what you're observing in those, because the longer you use THC, the longer it takes to have a half-life, meaning that it wears out your system longer and longer. Your body gets slower at metabolizing it, not fast. It's one of the few drugs that does that. Yeah, I know. Wild stuff.
Crazy.
So with PTSD, you're really just kind of putting off the problem. And you're also kind of reducing your REM. And it's not a good intervention that scales well across time. In the short run, you'll be elated. In the long run, you'll have a very, very hard time untying that and getting out of it. So
pick your poison, though. If you're on benzos forever, which one are you going to pick? THC
oh gosh, everything's better than benzos.
Yeah.
All of
them. Your relative is Max Hodak. You want to get that, Anthony?
Oh, let's see here. Max Hodak broke off from Neuralink to start Science Corporation, and he's studying biohybrid devices to bring sight back to the blind. He thinks we'll be able to create a 13th cranial nerve with USB. Yeah, I don't know. Does that mean he's installing a camera on the USB port? So we'll see. There's a lot of companies doing BCIs now. So Radar has a good question related to the neurofeedback, though, and we can get back to the Neuralink if we want, but I thought maybe just he's asking about neurofeedback. Yeah. Josh, do you think there's some patterns of EEG patterns that don't seem to respond well to neurofeedback?
There was some researcher that studied non-responders, and I reached out to this person. Non-responders was the technical term they used. Yeah. I reached out and asked, okay, well, what did you not say in the study about what the non-responders had in common? And the answer was they generally had frontal midline failure mode. So they had something like that, cognitive inflexibility. They generally had a personality disorder. They generally were depressed, like chronic depression. We think there was 4 things. I want to get them all. There were 4 things: frontal midline failure, depressed, personality disordered.
That's good stuff.
Sleep disordered. Yeah. Yeah, I believe that was it. And so those are the patterns associated with increased failure rate.
No, this is awesome, because I have wondered too about, I still encounter them, people that don't feel neurofeedback, or one that they won't notice is very often is frontal training, frontal suppression. They don't seem to, they'll act completely different, but they, to them, I don't know what you're talking about. Everyone around them says, wow, you're a different person. Like, I don't know what you're saying. So I've been trying to figure out what that is. And the personality disorder thing makes a little difference, because something that you hear in the psychology world is personality disorder patients, which is like narcissism and borderline, antisocial personality. Those guys are the least likely to get better. And part of it is because they're less likely to seek treatment. So I'm wondering, maybe those involve specifically like poor internal awareness. Makes me wonder.
I don't want to make it sound like those individuals don't benefit from neurofeedback. Not at all. Like I think neurofeedback
I think they do too.
A phenomenal tool for personality disorders, but that it's one of the tenets of increased risk, unpublished by the way, increased risk for being a non-learner. Typically when I try a couple of different tools from a couple of different angles. So I'll try training the brain from like a bottom up or a top down, and different ways of getting there. I got a bunch of tools.
That's great.
I think like when the one non-learner that was like, this is the guy that nothing worked on. He had all of the risk factors. It was like, oh no, it was
that poor sleep. The poor sleep, your brain is actually learning during sleep. And so the poor sleep could explain partly why he wasn't learning, maybe, among other things.
Yeah, I wonder how that stuff works. People tend to learn less when they have poor vigilance, and I do wonder if we don't understand that. Is it the vigilant shift that they like? Because can people
Interesting.
not learn in their sleep? Because when I graduated from my internship 15 years ago, I asked Dr. Lisa Black, what's an area of study if I wanted to get into research? And she said, training people while they're asleep. Like no one's done it, but everyone kind of suspects it
Oh,
will work.
cool.
You know, now no one thinks it's going to be as good as training them while they're awake. But neurofeedback
Interesting.
is basically autonomically learned. And so the
Like
question
a
is, can I
sleeping
train
lab
you while
type
you're
thing?
asleep? What's that?
Like a sleeping lab?
Well, I mean, here's the weird thing. If I had vibro, like if I had hepatic feedback, or part of me is tempted to share a personal story that would. I don't want to get people ideas. That's the only reason why I don't share it.
Just us girls.
But I have some personal evidence that you can learn in your sleep because of
Cool.
my own self experimenting. And it's like something like I was able to shift something in my sleep. It's like I don't know why you could do that, but my mentor, my first mentor, suggested that there was room for exploring that. And again, like we do see that people don't learn as well when they're drowsy, and
Yeah.
you know, so there's just a ton of questions like, what does this mean? You know,
In India, before you go to sleep, if you don't want to forget something, they punch the pillow to remember whatever it is they want to remember in the morning. Why would that work? Or is that just somebody that sold me a bill of goods in New Delhi?
I would. I kind of have to be there. Like, does it leave an imprint on the pillow, or is it just a strong like paired association?
We're not that close.
You know, I don't know.
Talk about the God frequency, layered, being able to stop all wars, reduce conflict, and make the human brain more intelligent. Welcome aboard, Tim Van.
God frequency. I'm wanting to be sure that I understand what that is, because there's a few things that could mean.
Yeah. You just get some, when you Google it, you get a binaural, music file, basically.
Which one, though?
You get 963 hertz and then 432. Right, so I just wonder, because what all that averages out to, I'm going to guess this person's saying it comes out to theta when you actually subtract it.
Like some harmonic or something.
What'd you say? Like a harmonic?
Like yeah.
I'm going to... And okay. I'm not aware of a frequency like that, but that's theoretically your brain needs all frequencies. So
right, yeah.
So that would be the other thing. So
that sounds like the one person closest to God is Jay Gunkelman. We'll ask him in the morning.
Well, and I do know that Jay knows. So these frequencies that are in like the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, like Jay does know about these. I don't study them. And so I'm sitting here going, I'm looking into this. Maybe I'll study it a little bit. But Jay would know off the top of his head what these are. These aren't commonly studied frequencies. We know that they do exist in the nervous system. We have super, super slow mechanisms that are way slower than you think in our nervous system. And there are much faster mechanisms than you think as well. And Jay will go down to the level of, I don't even know what it is. He's got all the stuff memorized. Just ask Jay.
It's written on the inside of his monocle. Talbo's got a challenge with neurofeedback, says it's really hard to find a highly qualified practitioner, especially someone experienced with kids or adults in your local area. In many cases, you have to travel.
Yep.
Reminds me about how some people geek out about the Schumann resonance.
Yeah. I know that I mentioned casually to Jay over social media this week that I had a device that could do stim therapy, like CES, and it had a Schumann resonance things. I said I only tried it once, and it was really, really weird. And I'm not really going to go back to it until I study it more. And Jay was like very quickly to respond, going, "Let's talk about that in our next meeting." Like as if like, hold
Neat.
up, we'll and we didn't get to it. I kind of forgot.
Take a pause.
Well, but he was very quick to be like, let's make sure we address that. So I know he's got thoughts on it.
Yeah. I just Googled Schumann resonance, and it says the strongest one is at 7.8 hertz, which is theta. Like all this stuff. Here's why I think all this stuff's coming out to theta, because theta is associated with mania. It's associated with mystical experiences. It's associated with hyperfocus. So in other words, theta feels good, but it puts you into flow. So theta is one of the, it's theta and alpha, but it's really theta is when you're in flow. The problem with that is, like, if you talk to the guy who coined the term flow, he says, flow is only good when you can detach, when you can turn it off and go back to your family and stop working. Okay. So, the people that are obsessed with theta, I don't get a good experience with them. I don't think it's actually helping them. When you're in theta, everything seems profound. but it's really not. Like these people that go to music festivals, they're like, dude, can you believe we're all just here right now? That's what I think about theta. And by the way, theta psychedelics, when you're on psychedelics, it puts you in a theta state. It massively spikes theta. And that's associated with mystical experience. So, and none of us would say we're at our best during a mystical experience. So I'm all these binaural beats, here's what Jay said about it to me though, Josh, by the way. Jay specifically said this. He said a lot of these frequencies, when they hit a so-called resonant frequency in the brain, in other words, when an area of the brain can operate at that frequency, it will start to uplift that frequency in that area. That area will begin to operate at that. He said, but you don't always want every area of your brain, just because it's capable of that frequency doesn't mean you want it like locked. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this stuff, but pursue it your own risk kind of thing. So we got a James Moore. Yeah, go on,
a lot of times,
this is softball.
There could be real mechanisms that are, related indirectly to theta, much like gamma is. So for example, gamma is a higher frequency, and there's some debate as to how high that goes. Even though I think there's higher frequencies than gamma, those are nestled into theta. And so there's a direct relationship between a higher frequency and theta. And
that's fine.
On
gamma, Jay says you don't want to be stuck in gamma either. So that's what I would say.
I'm not sure that uptraining it gets you stuck in it though. I think that's purely a disease state.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, do you want to run the risk that you're pushing your brain to look more like a disease state? But I'll answer James Moore. Talabo had a question. I just want to mention, Talabo was saying it's hard to find people in your area. And I think the thing that Josh and maybe others would say is, consider remote providers. I know it's going to be harder for you. She says she wants somebody skilled with kids and maybe something else. But she's saying we don't have somebody skilled with kids under 12 in our area. So and I hate, because kids is a special skill set. And so I hate that there's not somebody nearby for you to Labo, but perhaps there's somebody you'd be comfortable using remotely. Why don't you take that one, Josh?
Well, hold on.
We do remote stuff.
Andrew Hill does 80% of his work remote, right?
Yeah. So Andrew Hill's really optimized for remote. And the way that he does that is that he has contractors in like all 50 states that do the relaying so that he's working in that individual state. And I think that's the way to do it. I do remote work for people within Washington state. I don't go outside of Washington state because I want to be, I want to be ethical, and I want to practice with a healthcare license. I don't want to be a brain coach. I want to be a therapist. And Dr. Hill has figured out how to have his cake and eat it too by just having 50 contractors. So it's like good for him. Yep.
And that sounds like a good, decent recommendation. And if Josh, if you're in Washington, consider Josh as well.
Sure.
And Radar advocates for Dr. Hill as well here. There was one from James Moore that I missed. Sorry, I was excited talking about the other stuff. Let's see if we find that one.
Yeah, how do you keep up with current research?
That's what it was. Yeah. Josh, do you want to go on how you keep up with everything first there?
For research?
Yeah.
So I actually have AI software. I have a bunch of AI prompts that scour the internet every Friday night or Saturday night, I think it is.
That's very cool.
It emails me a list of all the what was published in the last week on neurofeedback or on QEEGs. And I pay a decent amount of money for some of the more expensive AI systems. But my time is valuable. So, and then I also am on the forums where people like Anthony is actually dumping some of the best stuff the fastest. And you do rival the AI software pretty well, by the way.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
It's worth mentioning the stuff that you post on, because that's
no, I really appreciate it, and that makes it all worthwhile. And James, by the way, the post that he's talking about, I put specific to neurofeedback I put it often in the Brain Master group. So if you just want to see neurofeedbacks, and I'm not the only one, there's plenty of people on Facebook, the Brain Master group, Thomas Kalora, Josh is in there. So if I was just going to keep track of neurofeedback, the easiest, that would be one place. Sorry.
Since somebody asked the video editor what to do, I would get really good with one of your AIs to do the code like Josh was doing, but also go to the podcast that you like to go to the transcript,
yeah. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And go snag that stuff and put it in
Transcripts.
there. Like I couldn't
After
listen
stops.
to myself for an hour. I don't know why you people are listening to me for an hour, but I
How
can
funny.
go and scrape that stuff and give me the highlights and say, hey, what do you think? And I think that works out really good.
Talabo mentioned, being uncomfortable running this session by themselves with their 6-year-old. I think that's assuming that they're also not within reach of a provider. If they had, this is something you could confirm, if you had neuromarkers related to hypoperfused frontal lobe.
Hold on. Talabo, John Anderson is in Minnesota.
Okay. John
He
Anderson.
He trained me on neurofeedback 3 times, and then I'm doing a podcast.
Excellent.
John Anderson, there's a podcast. Talbot, there's a podcast we did probably 3 years ago with John Anderson and his crew. Highly recommend our guy, John.
That's good.
Awesome.
All right.
Josh, did you want to continue or sorry?
Oh, sure. Yeah. That being said, if there is a local provider who's competent, I strongly prefer a provider. That being said, sometimes when somebody has a underperfused or underactivated frontal lobe and they don't have overarousal indicators, that can be a good indication if those are they don't have the contraindication and they do have the indicator. One system that has yet to be fully tested, in my opinion, but might be very, very exciting is the Mendy headset. And I've just been seeing it around and I've got one, I've been playing with it. And it's basically like a different technology for an HEG biofeedback, EEG. So it's basically blood flow biofeedback. And I've looked at the patents and it shouldn't be less accurate. It should be slightly more accurate than I think what they might be using on the market for HEG. It's far infrared light therapy to kind of measure blood flow and reward increased blood flow. And that is interesting to me if it works. And I think it should work. So I'm kind of in the process of exploring that at our clinic right now. So yeah, we'll see. But it's cheap. It's a cheap little device. But you have to have the right indicators for it, and you have to not have the contraindicators for it. And again, they just sell to anybody, so be warned.
Be careful when you say cheap, Joshua.
Yeah, cheap. Okay. Well, meaning you're not going to be paying thousands of dollars for it. It's just a couple $100. Yeah.
I will say. Yeah, go on.
I'm sorry, Tim.
He's talking about a movie. Yeah. The Matrix. We are talking about brain-computer interfaces, so the Matrix may not be out of the question one day, but on the HEG real quick, I do want to say Dr. Hill has talked about HEG a lot, and I the one thing I recall, I have other notes here, I'm looking for him, but he does say, don't do it for too long, and I think Josh said it too, like don't at one sitting, you don't want to do that too long. Yeah.
No.
I just want to mention
that. Well, I have like reactive sinus tissue, and so if I go more than like 30 minutes, I'll give myself a migraine. And so there's, it's just you're increasing blood flow. It's a little bit of a blunt instrument. It's also more responsive than traditional neurofeedback, so you're going to get a stronger response faster. So it's like caution. Yeah, caution.
And I know that
there's no artifact too. You don't have to deal with brain with. If you're scrunching your face or if you're wiggling around, it's not going to affect training. It doesn't. There's those artifacts don't exist in.
Interesting. So it's like cleaner signal.
Yes.
The one thing about that is I know that I know from charts that Jay shares that if you get HEG, it's increasing blood flow, and I know that if you get too much blood flow or hyperperfusion, as Jay calls it, that is associated with increased high beta, and I know that too much of that is bad, I guess. And so I don't know how the HEG system accounts for that, if it does.
I would love to know more about these devices, but my impression is that they'll get them commercially FDA approved and they'll just throw it on the market. And so I encourage a lot more caution than maybe the manufacturers might. I prefer to get a QEEG and know, hey, is my brain a good fit for this? And then, using it, until your desired symptom is attenuated, get a post-nap at a reasonable period of time, and then just stop using it. You don't want to just increase blood flow to the frontal lobe indefinitely forever. Like you don't want to keep upping that. And so that's well said. Thank you. I meant to say that. Thank you.
No, and I got part of that from you, so that's great. And there were a couple more questions here about Radar asks, are artifacts inevitable in a QEEG, or are they a consequence of the clinicians largely being incompetent?
Yes.
Both. Yeah. Thank you. I like you, Pete. Thank you, Pete.
Yes. That's funny.
Yes. Yeah. The devil's in the details. If I'm dealing with a 4-year-old, they're inevitable. Bad luck, they're inevitable. But there is a certain amount of quality control that the practitioner needs to have.
Triona, who does neurofeedback for 30 minutes? Isn't that a long time? I would get a headache.
This
is a question for Josh. Yeah.
So I tend to go overboard, for better or worse.
Yeah.
I tend to just I have this new thing. I want to know what it does. I'm going to overdo it. I'm not. That's not a virtue. It's just what I do. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to do that. I was just interested. I was curious.
What, do you get a migraine, Triona?
Yeah.
So the temperature kept going up, and I was like, "How much can I go?" I was like, "Man, I raised my forehead 3 degrees. Wow. How much can I go?" It was that curiosity of if I leave it on, will it just keep going up? And it did, and it did, and it did. And I was just curious how far I could push it, and I made myself sick. Later on, I put it on, and I turned off all the audio and visual, so I couldn't see any feedback. And I left it on for about an hour because I wanted to see how much of this is just radiating heat from my skin that's warming up the device. And the answer was a third of it was just radiating heat from my body, that the increased temperature was mostly a training effect, which is terrifying.
Wow. You're inducing a fever. Gosh, Josh. And so I'm not saying anybody to do this, right. But you mentioned this for autistic children.
Yes.
If you're inducing a fever, but obviously, I'll say this is a perfect time to say I looked into, because I was trying to figure out what is heat doing to the autistic children. And one of the things you come up across is chronic heat to your brain is not a good idea. Not that should go without saying. But I just want to say, interestingly, Josh, what it said is heat generally will increase slow waves and increase fast waves in the EEG. So one of those might be helping the autistic children, but obviously long term, neither of those are for most people are going to be particularly good. And
that's actually what I was thinking, but didn't say about the fever, is that what you were likely observing in their symptomology improvement was the counterbalance to the fever. It probably wasn't something directly inherent to the fever, but something that was a counterbalance to the fever that was improving their symptoms.
Like the norepinephrine or something.
It's tricky. Exactly. The nervous system's really tricky.
I know. So when they get a fever, they're getting free HEG is what I think. I'm realizing. I'm kind of kidding, but actually that matches.
HEG is really specific to the frontal lobe, though. So
okay, they're getting it all over. But this is just because I think it's cool. The idea that the heat is increasing fast and slow waves, that matches Ian Cook, the chart that Jay always shares from Ian Cook of UCLA, showing what brain waves are doing to the blood flow. Is that the slowest waves and the fastest waves, it's like a V kind of, those increase blood flow the most. So it's kind of interesting. The fever's doing the exact same thing. And maybe HEG, that was my fear actually about HEG, was maybe it was increasing certain brain waves at the high end that you don't want. But anyway, just kind of an interesting connection.
Agreed.
On the Neuralink stuff, James Moore, I wanted to just mention, it's super cool that they, and actually I think Synchron is a company that's going in through the jugular. They actually are beating Neuralink at various milestones. And they actually have a deal with Apple. So Synchron, you can look them up. They're the first company to use Apple's new API, which is like a programming, almost like a shortcut. Basically, the iOS now understands how to talk to brain-computer interfaces. Apple has programmed it to, and Synchron is the first company to use it. But anyway, whenever Neuralink comes up, and I know Jay talks about this, I get a little bit, what's the word? It hurts a little because EEG has been used to do some of this stuff. Like they've been controlling computers with EEG for 50 years. I mean, since the 70s, Jay talks about it. His guy, Niedermeyer, figured out how to have people play the Pong video game which is no different than controlling your mouse, basically, using EEG. And there's a woman right now, you can look this up. This has been a few years now. There's a woman, a video game streamer. She plays the game Dark Souls, which is known as one of the hardest games you can play. She plays it with an EEG headset. She plays it with an over-the-counter, and she wins. She goes on no-hit runs, and she beats other players. And I just say that to say, apparently EEG can be pretty good for controlling characters on a screen, and you didn't have to do surgery. And so part of me wishes that we could go a little further, but the Neuralink could probably do more one day. What do you say, Josh?
Well, the Neuralink probably will scale better because of the amount of signal that they can pull. And also Neuralink, I think, shows the aptitude of integrating very quickly, meaning that people go from just getting it to performing well very quickly. So the amount of like, what do you call it? Processing allocation.
The training time they said is short.
Yeah,
but I don't know how long it was for EEG.
There was a BCI interface test that is online that anybody can take, and one of the last people who got the Neuralink, someone who was paralyzed, he went as a fun experiment to go take the test, and he actually broke the world record. Like the day after he got the surgery, he was a little confused. He was like, "Did I get the high score?"
Text speech or something like that.
I think all this stuff is good. I think there should be more people on the market doing it because everybody wins. Competition's healthy. There was something else. I forget what it was. Doesn't matter.
No, and on the Neuralink. Oh, with the one caveat that the Neuralink deteriorates faster too. So it's and I think these things may corrode. But Jay has talked about this, that they. We don't know what the long-term effects, but a lot of animals have died. So here's, I think Synchron broke off Neuralink. Yeah, that may be true as well. The flat strip of electrodes that LASIK on the Neuralink is on course to reach 20 patients by end of year. That's good. That's good.
What you were seeing with the Neuralink, I think there's a lot of negative press, which is fine. It's political. Who cares? But
my source is Jay. But that's So go on.
And Jay has a particular belief about. He has a particular political opinion on it, which is fine. But I do think you get a very, very strong picture of it. Who just because it's Musk, just because it's Elon Musk, it's going to be 97% negative review. That's just what it's going to be. There are the issue of the brain. It floats more in the brain than they thought. And so when they initially did the first couple, maybe the first one or two Neuralinks, which are usually somewhere centrally around the sensory motor strip, they didn't allow for enough give and pull in some of the sensors. And so some of them pulled out because the brain floated more than what their models had predicted. And so in future iterations, they had to accommodate for more movement in the brain. And in order to get less sensor loss. And so they're plugging in something like between 2,000 and 10,000 sensors. And, the more you keep, the more choices you get and the higher resolution you get. And they don't use all 2,000, by the way. They don't. They use more like a couple hundred. So they have backups and they have other ways to connect to the circuits. So they have a very dynamic system that's much more redundant than is understood. So nobody's lost function of a Neuralink that's been installed. But that being said, they want to scale it and do more with it. And in order to do that, they have to figure out how to get all the signals to stay. And that's a little tricky if the brain's floating around and moving. And you have these teeny tiny sensors that are 1/10 the size of a human hair that can get pulled out. So, oops.
It'll definitely improve. Now the cutting corners part is not something that Jay made up. That is this is kind of the consensus. But anyway, so here Talabo is asking.
I get it.
Yeah. But anyway, so here's Talabo, and she says, "Is there a book you'd recommend that's simple, easy to read guide?" Pete's going to answer it. I know what he's going to say.
No, I'm just going to throw out Lori Chapin Carpenter, who recently passed. She's out of Peoria, Illinois, and she has a very good book that even I read, and I put a link to her bio where you can pick up one of her books. Her and her husband, they put out 2 or 3 very, very simple neurofeedback books, and when I had the clinic, that would be the first book that I would give out, and the second book Sieber and Fisher's book was a good one. And then the handy dandy AAPB book with the efficacies
That's great.
in it. That's what the video editor gives out. Now, what about the guys who knows what they're doing? Go ahead.
I thought I was just going to mention that Josh has a book.
Which one? Oh, yeah, sure.
An intro style. Yeah. Did you want to say the name? I'm sorry, I forgot the name.
Oh, no, you're good. Just Neurofeedback for All, a beginner's introduction. And again, it's priced as cheap as Amazon will let me. And it does sell for like $2.99 on Kindle. And so, because it's a high gloss, high colored print, it's not that cheap, but the Kindle version can be. So, so something that hopefully is useful to the community.
And then you have a workbook you're working on, aren't you, Joshua? Because we're at the end of the show, so we're gonna start selling units now.
The workbook, I kind of feel like I want to wait until the workshop is done, because it'll kind of go with the workshop. So I'll have this foundational workshop on phenotypes that I'm working on. I want it to be within 95% of the best thing that I can imagine. And I already have something like maybe 20% of the content kind of all prepped and ready to go. And part of it's, all done and finalized. I'll probably have 3 modules or something like that out in the next week or 2 weeks. And I'm mostly just stuck on little computer things that'll get fixed in a couple of days. And then I'll have some links and stuff for Pete to give you.
All right.
So I would love to see it as well. However you make it available, let me know. And
my goal is to coordinate with people like Anthony and Pete. I don't have a lot of influence, and I don't particularly want to have the influence. I want to delegate that responsibility.
You got the influence. Stop it.
Anthony, I would love to have. Thank you, Pete, and Josh, and I would love to have stuff that I feel good about sending people and showing people. So I love it about the phenotypes and things that we talk about. So that would be wonderful. And then just I get a sense some people find it a little uncomfortable, talking about neurofeedback on Facebook, but feel free to join. You don't have to ask questions, or if you need to post, you can post anonymously. And there's just how to get up to speed in a new industry. I think these user groups, Facebook, Reddit, this is the way to do it. So the Brain Master group.
Science and Technology Discoveries. Is that your group?
And that one, if you want to talk about stuff beyond neurofeedback, but neurofeedback's in there as well. It's Science and Technology Discoveries. So thank you, Pete.
So I'm going to put the link here. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. We paid the bill, and we'd like to thank Talibou. We'd like to thank James Moore, all the Moore relatives, Radar, Triona. Oh, we had a Tim Van from Van's Refrigeration.
Cool.
Who else? Triona. And we'll make sure we get everybody. Okay.
And
now we're going to take a little break next week, y'all. Just a little heads up. We won't have a Q&A next week, but we'll continue the following week. Thank you for everybody showing up. Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for showing all. Have a great night. Peace out.
Thank you, dudes. All right, we'll see you again.
All right, smell ya. Bye.
Have a good evening.